So speaking of fucked up, that thing I sent you last night, I'll be honest with you, I haven't followed up this morning. I don't know what's going on. Last I heard was they still haven't caught the fucking guy or guys or
I
whatever.
have this pulled up. So yeah, if we don't know what we're talking about the active shooter in Maine.
Yep.
And so here's just the news report. I think it's from last night. So we can listen to this.
The best information we have from multiple law enforcement sources at this hour is that the person of interest, Robert Carr, is not in custody at this time. Carr has past military experience. Carr is armed, they believe, with an AR-style rifle. There are 2 shooting locations. There are victims shared with law enforcement. And again, this is fluid. Things continue to change. The best information as of now is 15 to 20 people deceased. Unknown the total number of injured, about 50 is the number law enforcement has been briefed and shared. Not all 50 are gunshot wound victims, but numerous are stampede victims as the teens and young adults in that bowling alley and others in that neighborhood bar ran for their lives as this mass shooter armed with an AR-15 entered and began firing. According to Maine State Police, who put out a bulletin and a bolo that was shared with multiple law enforcement agencies, that Card, the person of interest, is a trained firearms instructor with military experience, that he may have had mental health issues in the past, including hearing voices and threats in the past, and that he may have spent a couple of weeks in a mental health facility. His car, according to law enforcement sources who have been briefed, has been located, a white Subaru. He is not in it. They believe he fled on foot. Where he is at this hour is unknown. He is considered armed and dangerous, and the manhunt with hundreds of local, state, and federal authorities is ongoing across the Lewiston, Maine area, where people have been told to shelter in place and remain indoors. Call 911 if you see something suspicious up there, and they remain concerned as he is considered armed and extremely dangerous.
So what we did is we took the witnesses of the 2 locations. We actually brought them to a holding area so we can interview them, clear them, and then we wanted to bring them all over here so they can have what we call a reunification process with their loved ones, which is the proper way to do it. We wanted to make sure that evidence could be gathered and the proper protocol could be followed.
Can you talk to us about the different ages of the witnesses? Were there kids that witnessed it?
Yes. It's all ages. It was all ages. I just talked to some teenagers, and it was all ages.
And what can you say about the law enforcement officers working this very?
All right. I'm like, they're just, doing that. So, yeah.
Might have had mental issues. Yeah. So I'd say that's a pretty safe fucking bet.
So like when we do, when we have to, the problem is when we're applying for firearms permits here, again, I mean, technically, if you want to get to it, there shouldn't be any, because it's a constitutional right. If you're mentally ill, it's like, if you're mentally ill, should you be able to vote, right? Should you be able to have free speech, right? So, I mean, that's where it gets tricky. And that's where, constitutional lawyers will tell you, well, my mental health is, none shouldn't prevent me from, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Right. So, but in reality, what happens is like we go through, they do a mental health check with us. I don't know how extensive it is. I think they just do the local hospitals. I don't know how, what kind of record keeping that the mental health and the hospital systems have and sharing with one another. Meaning, like, if I'm in another state, right, do they communicate? Do they have access to the same database? Now, that's only when I apply for the weapon. Now, what happens if I check myself into a mental institution now and I own all these guns, right? So does that something, I can guarantee you, and I don't know this for sure, I'm just talking about at my ass, but I can guarantee you there's no mechanism in place to, and I hate to use this, but it's, to take the guns out of the responsibility of the mentally ill person, right? There's no mechanism, zero. So, and then that gets tricky because now it's like, okay, you're seizing my property, which is legally mine. And where are you going with it? Who's looking at it? Does it get in custody of a loved one? What if there's no loved one? Does it come into custody of the state? I mean, there's this whole, thing that's happening. I mean, what you really need to look at, again, there is no, no ultimate solution to any of this. Like Thomas Sowell says, no solution, only trade-offs.
Yeah.
Hold on, there's one, but no, sure. So, you're looking for an ultimate solution to this, and there's really not one. The only thing that you can do as a public, which people won't do, is harden themselves and prepare themselves in the event of this situation. Look, no one wants to say that, but if you had people with firearms and training that were there, and again, this wasn't a school, this was a bowling alley and a restaurant. So, you're looking at, these people who are, and these are typically the areas that are targeted. I know we focus on schools a lot, which is tragic because it's all tragic, but you're looking at, it gets a bigger impact because it's children, but most of the places where a lot of places don't allow firearms, right?
Yeah.
Like you go into, like in New Jersey now, like you can't bring any place a firearm or any place where alcohol is served. You can't bring it into a movie theater. You can't bring it into any place where, I don't think that guy gave a shit that you can bring firearms in there, right?
Obviously.
Now I understand not, consuming alcohol, right? I mean, we don't, like, if I carry, I'm not drinking at all. I mean, or doing anything. I mean, that just goes without fucking question, but the reality is it's like, if this guy came into a restaurant or bowling alley in the state that I live in and started shooting it up, nobody in there would be able to return fire because the law doesn't require us, doesn't allow us to. And the same old shit over and over again. Criminals don't give a shit. Criminals break the law. Criminals are going to go where they know that they're not going to get resistance.
Yeah.
So, and that's what's happening, and that's what happens all over. So, this shit, again, not going to be prevented, but it could be minimized. And it's a burden on us. It's a burden on the individual, to be honest. You can't expect every business owner to hire armed security to sit at their place, right? If you let the people protect themselves, I mean, you won't realize. I mean, I hope people realize that, when you see this, how vulnerable we really are, and I'm trying to, and this is, I'm trying to explain, this to, I don't know, the world, when, in any town, if there was like an explosion, or even in my town, if there's a house fire, right? Everyone and their mother is going to show up to that house fire.
Yep.
We're going to have like 4 surrounding towns of fire department, firefighters. We're going to have 3 or 4 surrounding towns of cops. All of our cops are going to be there. The rest in the vicinity, in the town, is completely unprotected. All of our resources are there. And and the response time, again, turns to shit, because all of a sudden, if you call in and you're like, someone's kicking in my door, chances are local cops they're gonna, they have redundancies in place, but it's, either the local cops are going to try to get a couple units over there, or, whatever's reserve is going to be, is going to take, is going to take time to have to get over there from one of the neighboring towns that's providing support. Now add another event to that and another event to that. If you had like a local area, let's say you put a house on fire and then you had like 3 strategic fucking attacks, I'm like, the resources are depleted. By the time people are getting there, shit is over. You're talking about like minutes. I mean, you're talking about like 10, 15 minutes, which is an eternity. Like we say, it's like, it's like, oh yeah, well, response time is, a couple, it's a couple, it's like 5 minutes or 12 minutes or 15 minutes. Like when you're attacked, that's like 15 minutes underwater.
Yeah. 5 minutes is a fucking eternity. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm like, if anyone has even done any type of combat sport, Thai boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, boxing, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and you've never done that before, and you do like 3 minutes of like real sparring, I'm like, you are fucking sucking the vinyl off the mat.
Oh fuck, you're doing that like in 30 seconds. Like let's be real.
It's like forever, and people are like, I've never felt this tired in my life. I'm like, yeah, this is why wrestlers are generally fucking miserable.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, so this shit, is just, it's up to the individuals to protect themselves, and it's up to the states and the government to allow individuals to protect themselves against this shit. The problem is, this guy, you could say, he's a gun instructor. There's going to be people that fucking do this, former military, what possesses a person to commit mass murder is beyond me, and it's not me to understand. Right. I mean, I like to, we all want to prevent this. Those are the obvious statements. The fact is, though, in order to do this, I'm like, you need firearms and body armor, period.
Yep.
That's the reality of the world we live in. Right. And this shit continues to happen it's still, okay, let's just say it's still an anomaly, but it happens. Right. Yep. So, I'm not reading 20 people die in a fire right now. I'm reading 20 people die from a broken, rabid human being that, as awful as that, is as bad as I feel for, whatever stress he went through. If it doesn't help it, if I'm in there, my family's in there, my friends are in there, other human beings are in there that didn't ask for that shit.
Exactly.
So, these guys, you've got to, wake up. You're going to continue to start here comes the anti-gun rhetoric again. Here comes all the other bullshit. And when in reality, if, you allow people to carry who have, demonstrated their ability to, they have competency to carry their firearm, let them go. What are you doing? As long as you're not reckless, and then when you fuck up, you pay. That's it. You gotta, if you can't drink with it, you can't, use it in a manner that is, unless there's a justifiable deadly force. And this is it, because Maine has concealed carry. They have open carry. They have constitutional carry. I'm a little, shocked that somebody wasn't in that place that didn't return fire, unless the place had a strict, anti-firearm policy. So